Hey everybody, this is Sherry Winn, host of Olympic Minds Leadership Beyond Limits. This is a podcast for those individuals who want to become the leader of leaders, the visionary of visionaries, people who want to go beyond success into significance, and those people who want to go beyond mediocrity into mastery. This is not theory-based. So the people that I talk to, they have lived life, they've experienced success, they know what it takes to be out there and to grind away to create a world where passion, authenticity, and success collide. So I'm Sherry Winn, two-time Olympian, national championship basketball coach, author of 5 leadership books, and CEO of the Winning Leadership Company. Today, my guest is Neale Godfrey. And oh my gosh, folks, I got to tell you this. When I interviewed her for my book, she had me laughing till I had tears rolling down my face. She's so authentic. She's so real. She has stayed true to who she is all her life. She is a New York Times bestselling author. Oh my gosh, just that alone should be enough to introduce her. She created Children's Financial Network. And so she's the first person who created books for children about finances. She speaks, she writes, she is alive. She's got a huge energy to come into today. So I want Neale, go ahead and tell the people a little bit more about yourself today.
Well, you forgot the big thing. You forgot that I am your biggest fan, inspiration, and I love Sherry. So this is like, wow, Sherry wants me to be on. I don't know. Where do I start? Where do you want me to talk about?
Well, I really think the story you told me about you growing up and your mom just supporting who you were. I mean, supporting your creative nature and the person that you wanted to be instead of trying to stifle and shut you off. She was really there helping you just live in your authentic self.
She was there. She did shut me down sometimes, which is interesting. But I think being an entrepreneur and being someone who basically isn't afraid of rejection. And I think that's our biggest takeaway in life. She was there to shut me down when I was 6 years old and had an entrepreneurial spirit. And what that was that there was a little farm next door, and one of the things that they were growing was grapes, and the grapes hung over my yard. And I went to my father and I said, when something is like in your space, does it belong to you or would it be someone else's? And so my father looks up from his paper and says that, no, it's yours, and cites some legal something. Not asking, and what does that mean to you? Okay, so what I did was I looked at a bottle of wine that my mother had. It was Chianti. And the woman was this Italian woman dressed in a babushka with a scarf and a basket. And so what I did was I got a basket for my mother, and I got one of her scarves, which happened to be, okay, fine, Chanel, but I still tied it around my head. It became a schmata. And I went next door. What I did is I picked all the grapes. I got a ladder and I picked all the grapes that were hanging on my side.
Absolutely.
Just saying that possession is 9/10 of the law, which I had no idea what that meant. And I went over and I said to them, my family is having a little bit of financial problems, and I'm dressed seriously, like some weird Italian matron. And I said, I'd like to sell these grapes to you. And obviously they knew I was selling the grapes back to them. And they said, and how much are your grapes? And I said, they're 5 cents a piece. Hey, in the 60s, 5 cents a piece, or in the 50s, big money. I come back home, I take off the babushka, and I'm sitting at the dining room table counting, and my mother goes, where did you get that money? What did you do? And so I came clean and I said, I sold the grapes back. She goes, you are kidding, right? Drags me next door, and I said, do I have to put the costume back on? She goes, I'm going to kill you. You're not putting a costume back on. Get over here and give them back the money. So I gave them back the money. So as I'm giving it back, the neighbor goes to my mother, listen, are you sure you don't need the money? Because we want it. We know your family has fallen on hard times. And so then it was, okay, so I was shut down. And she pulled me, my mother pulled me next door back home, and she goes, okay, we're done with this. However, notwithstanding the babushka story,
Well, I want to stop you right there because I think it's really important. The first thing you said was you can't be afraid of rejection.
no,
Right. You cannot be afraid that somebody else is going to be mad at you, yells at you, dislikes you, says no to you, whatever it is. If you're going to succeed in life, you cannot fear rejection. And it's going to happen. I mean, I think that people just don't understand, look, it is the process. There's only one way to get what you want, and that is through failure.
yeah, and also it's funny because rejection is a larger fear than like death and divorce and public speaking. It's like, what? So we live our life trying not to be rejected, and it's like, embrace it. Like, my mother said to me and raised me that all they can do is say no. Get over it. That's it. All it is a no. And she said to me, what the no means is you didn't explain it well enough. You didn't tell them what it really was. You made an assumption about them. And then she said to me, I was 10 and doing things like stealing grapes and selling them. But I also did a tours through the sewers, and it was an extortion gang that I set up and worked really well. And she shut that down too. What I did is a 10-year-old, we had storm sewers, not poo-poo sewers, storm sewers. You walk in and they're really scary and yucky. And what I did is I charged the kids 10 cents to go in. I had all the flashlights. I told them to bring a lot of change, brought them in, turned the lights off, made really scary sounds, and then said to them, I'll get you out if you pay me a quarter. And they paid me. So it was an extortion gang. And again, it was great. I made a lot of money. Once again, caught. And then the mothers in the neighborhood came and complained to my mother. And my mother was like, now we're going to learn a new word. It's called extortion. This is not what your entrepreneurial, spirit is going to go in. You may not scare the kids to death and charge them money to get them out. I said, yeah, but it was a good plan. Yes, and you're shut down. Anyway, so.
Well, I like that she admitted it was a good plan. That's a great place to start. I mean, admitted it was a good plan. It's just not the right plan. It's not the way to do it. But it was like your spirit, your ability to think about possibilities, to do things, and then to enact them, to actually get people to go along with what you're doing.
And also with no initial capital injection. That's what I liked about my plans. I could go with what nature had brought us. They brought us grapes and they brought us storm sewers. Why wouldn't you do that? But what my mother did is I decided I didn't want to go to kindergarten, and I didn't want to dress in little stupid frilly dresses and that all the girls had to wear. So I had what I wanted to be when I grew up at that point was a cowboy. And I wanted to be a cowboy. And I had cowboy outfits. And they were denim, and they had flannel lining on both the jackets and the flannel shirt inside the pants. I mean, we're talking freaking cool, with matching hats, matching guns, because you were allowed to carry guns, fringe, whole thing. And I said to her, I showed up and I said, I'll go to school if I can wear these. And she said, little girls wear dresses. And I go, and that's fine. And I won't go to kindergarten. I'm good with that. I'll homeschool. So anyway, she went all the way up and got permission from the superintendent of schools to allow me to wear my cowboy outfits. And once in a while I was Daniel Boone. I don't want you to think I was just cowboy. So what was interesting was I never thought that was weird. That was perfectly natural. She didn't shame me. She didn't do anything. I went to school as a cowboy until I, got sick of the cowboy thing. And I never thought it was weird. And when I went to a 50th high school reunion, one of the people had said, when did you notice you were kind of different in terms of your attitude toward life? And I go, oh, I don't know. I think I was in college. And someone turned around and said, you mean as opposed to the cowboy outfits you wore in kindergarten? And I go, wait a minute, you thought that was weird? Yeah. So it sometimes takes the outside world to do it. And it was like, oh, okay. Well, yeah, all right. But whatever.
Well, I think the whole thing, right, you said a couple of keywords, shame. Like you never felt shame. And so shame is one of those vibrations. That's one of the lowest vibrations that we can experience. So if we're living down it is the lowest vibration. So there's guilt and shame at the end of the vibrational scale. And if you're living in guilt and shame, there's no possibility to attract better things because it's the lowest possibility. And yet what we do oftentimes, is we shame our kids. We make them feel guilty. We make them feel bad about who they are. Well, when you do that to your children, you're stopping them from potential. I mean, you're really shutting down their potential. And so I love it that your mom, even though she had to rein you in a few times, she didn't create shame around the essence of who you were, which brings up to me like the outfit you're currently wearing, right? So you've got this really cool a shirt made of shirts. Look at all that. Isn't that awesome?
Whoops.
I love it.
It's a shirt made of shirts. Yes. All right. You keep going.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I mean, the fact that you can, the potential that was created from your ability to be you and to not be shamed into, you've got to go this direction, because we know all innovation is stifled when we make people feel bad about it. It's stifled. And you've been allowed to be creative in so many different ways.
Yeah. And it's like, you don't have to dress the way I do, but this is the way I dress.
Isn't that lovely? Like, I'm just going to be me and you just be you and it's all great. Like, we don't have to.
In the Olympics, trust me, I'd have Olympic. I'm just saying I'd have, but. Yeah.
So tell us, I mean, I really love the story about, when you decided to go into and help children with finances, which I think is so many people don't understand. We go all the way through high school, we go all the way through college, and then people go into bankruptcy. They, they overdraft in their accounts. They don't keep up with where their money is. We have no understanding of finances. And you decided you were going to help children, and you wrote a book about it. And tell us about that journey so people understand why it was important to you and what you did.
I found myself in the financial world I didn't want to be in, but I found myself in it as the first female executive in banking at Chase Manhattan Bank in 1972, where they had never had a woman in banking. So anyway, I rose through the ranks at Chase and I'm taking the hero patches off my face. I'm sure most of your people have those. Anyway, so I decided that I wanted to get out of banking. However, I was offered to be president of the first women's bank, believed in it. We needed a women's bank because the Fair Credit Act had not been enacted until 1974, and women couldn't get credit with their own name. My first credit card at Chase Manhattan Bank, I was an executive. My then husband, by the way, is the operative word. My then husband was a law student, no credit at all. Had to have his name on it, a permission slip from him for me to use my own credit. So we're talking about very different times that we all lived with. So that's why we needed a women's bank. By the way, this one I didn't tell you, Sherry. When I first joined the women's bank, there was a lot of TV around it because it was the women's bank and it was weird. And I was on television. And one of the commentators said, "Miss Godfrey, what's the difference between the women's bank and a real bank?"
And a real bank.
I knew I misunderstood the question, so I said, "I'm sorry." And he said, "Miss Godfrey, what's the difference between the women's bank and a real bank?" And I said, "The difference between the women's bank and a real bank is once a month we get cranky and call all the loans." They didn't invite me back. So it's like,
well, I want you to tell more about your book, but I want to go back just a second.
All right. So
how did you get? I mean, you said, look, you said you weren't interested in really finances, but you found yourself. So you didn't just wake up and go, "Oh, I'm the president of the bank." How did that occur? So this was a time when women were not presidents. This was a time when women weren't elevated.
No,
so what was it that elevated you to that position? I mean, how did you get there?
Well, the big thing was getting into Chase, and that was, again, by accident. What happened was I needed a job. My husband we had just gotten married. I was 21 and I had to get a job. And in those days, women were secretaries, basically, in business. And I showed up at an agency to apply for jobs in New York City. And they said, what do you want to be? I had majored in international relations, so I assumed Secretary of State would be something I would be qualified for. So I told her, I want to be Secretary of State. And she said, fine, take a typing test. And I said, no, not Secretary of State. And she said, take a typing test. Well, I got through college going, hunt, peck. And she made me type with this great big IBM Selectric typewriter. She said, the big thing is to go fast. Okay, I can go fast. Anyway, I went fast. I got my hand stuck in the typewriter and she was furious and she had to have an IBM repairman come in. And I was sitting there for an hour and a half with my hand in this freaking typewriter. And I'm like, anyway, she was so pissed at me. The man had to disassemble the machine, get me out. And I was like, I'm okay. She goes, I don't care about you. I care about the machine. Anyway, she took my resume, crumpled it up, put it in her pocketbook, and literally banished me to the streets of New York. She went to a cocktail party that night. There was a guy there from Chase Manhattan Bank, and he knew she was obviously, an agent, an employment agent. And he said, do you have anyone that could possibly be the first female executive at Chase? And so she goes, does she need to know how to type? And he said, no. She opened up her pocketbook, took out the crumpled resume, smoothed it out, gave it to him, and I got a call the next day from the guy from Chase. That's how it happened.
Wow. I mean, you say it was an accident, but still, the story I hear is that you thought you should be Secretary of State. And so the belief system around I can do anything, that belief system. So was it kind of like accident? Maybe, but the belief system that you could do anything and that you could envision yourself doing that, you could believe yourself doing that. I mean, that just kind of started things rolling along your pathway, which wouldn't have happened if you didn't have that belief. And you grew up in a time when women weren't supposed to have that kind of belief system. They weren't supposed to believe they could, live outside the box. And you live it, and you just go, well, this is who I'm going to be, and so I'm just going to start being that person. I think that's such a beautiful thing for people to understand, is that you can only become what you think you can become, and you cannot become anything different.
Well, and I like what you're saying about belief systems, because part of my mother was this independent female, and the other part was, hey, to me, don't let the boys, don't win at sports. Don't be smarter than them. Don't be, what you have to do is take that back seat. So I was in this push-pull. And my thing with her was, wait a minute, I'm not supposed to be smarter than the guy in the room. Why would I then want to be with a dummy? I mean, let's just think this one through, Mom. And when I got divorced from my first husband and told my mother, her reaction was interesting. Again, as independent as she raised me to be, said to me, well, of course you did. You're more successful than he is. More than he is. Of course he wanted a divorce. He was cheating on me, so let's not talk about where he was in bed.
Right. But I understand those times, though, Neale, because, I grew up in a time when women really didn't play sports. I mean, there were a few places where women played sports. And in fact, the basketball played from the old days, and people are not going to believe that I'm this old. It was where the girls' basketball was 3-on-3 on one half and 3-on-3 on the other half. So we didn't get to cross the line because we didn't have the endurance, right? We couldn't do that. And so when I started playing, that's how it was played. But I used to play with all the boys. I mean, that's what I did all day long. I'd go outside and play the boys. And I was outside playing with the boys. And my grandmother said, who won? And I go, well, I did. She goes, oh, honey, you can't beat the boys. They won't like you. And I go, I don't care. Like, I just want to win. Like, what's more important? Those guys liking me or me beating them? Like, obviously, winning is far more important. But it was that, I mean, she was just aghast at, like, you shouldn't beat the boys. And I was like, why not? Why not? So I understand the messaging, and I think it's, some of that still exists, unfortunately.
Oh, yeah.
And it exists in different ways for different people. But the key here is that you don't have to listen to somebody else's story, nor live the life that they chose to live. You can choose to live the way that you want to live. So you became president of this bank, and then you opened the women's bank. And then along that pathway, you founded another company. So you decided that you really didn't want to be a bank president.
Yeah, and it was a public company, and I ran a board. It was like, ugh, it's everything I don't want to do. I'm very far away from the deals that I love to do. And while I was at Chase, I will say that I put together the largest merger at that point in the history of the United States. It was the DuPont Conoco merger in 1980. And it was so freaking cool. I reported to David Rockefeller and Bill Butcher, chairman, president, and Tom Lebrecht, the top of the bank, totally secret. I had 1 week to put together $4 billion, and we had never done billions. P.S. I was pregnant and had a miscarriage in the middle of it. I don't know if I told you that story.
No, you didn't tell me that, because that alone would have stopped most people from doing anything. And in fact, a lot of people in that scenario might have never recovered.
You know what? It's one of those things of keep going. And so anyway, I did have some great stuff to do at Chase, and it was really cool, and I did pull it off. Was not monetarily rewarded. Let me make that perfectly share that with you. By the way, when I joined Chase and went into the training program with the guys, I was paid the same as they were, and I thought, oh my God, this is so cool. It was $11,000 a year. It was 1972. Grow up. I mean, that's what we earned. We wanted to earn, our goal was to earn our age. I wanted to earn my weight, but that never worked out. So anyway, after I was in there for 2 weeks, the head of personnel called me into her office and said to me, "You're a woman, you're taking the job of a man. We're going to reduce your salary to $6,500. She did. And I was like, what do I have to do to earn what they're doing? And she said, graduate first in the class. I did. I came back and said, ta-da! And she said, no, who told you you would earn what men are earning? You're taking the job of a man. And I said, well, you did. She goes, no. Anyway, I didn't. When I put this deal together, my counterpart at First Boston, because Glass-Steagall separated investment banking from commercial banking, earned $1 million bonus. And he, who I had nicknamed Gucci Two Shoes, he had gone to Harvard and felt he was very superior to the single-celled corporate woman animal that he had to deal with. I pulled off my part, took advantage of the fact that I knew he was going to screw up his part that he did. He got $1 million bonus. I got $10,000 bonus. Let's just talk. Okay. Anyway,
well, yeah, I can see why you were ready to move on. I mean, this is the crazy thought, and it still happens today. Maybe not the same level, but it still happens. It happened when I was a basketball coach. The men were making far more than what I made. We were still reduced on. I remember the battle I had with my athletic director over a court time. And I said, we should have a prime court time as well as the men. The men always got to practice at a really good time of the day. And we were given like 6 a.m. or 8 p.m. And I was like, that's not fair. And he said, well, I can assign you any time, to be on the court, including 2 a.m. If that's what I decide, that's when you have to practice. And I was like, well, that's not right. Actually, that's not true. There is a law. And then, then I got thrown back the Title IX law. If you ever say that again to me, you'll be fired. I mean, that was like, wow, this is a great conversation. I'm so glad we had it. This was wonderful.
Glad you shared with me. Yes. And at least today, there are laws. I mean, we didn't even have the words affirmative action. There was nothing. And in terms of being groped and scared to death and all that, that's like, oh my God. Anyway. All right, so I get to First Women's Bank, I'm president, and I see women still coming in and apologizing about not knowing anything about finance and being uncomfortable handling their money. Oh, for God's sake. Anyway, research showed we were never taught anything as kids about money. So, fine. So I went to look for books. I had 2 little kids. I was divorced at that point, and I schlepped them to a million bookstores looking for books to teach them so they wouldn't be stupid about money. There were none. The topic of teaching kids about money did not exist. So my 3-year-old says, "Mommy, why don't you just write the books?" And I was like, huh? So I knew how to be a bank president, put big deals together, blah, blah, blah. I don't know how to write a book. So she saw that look on my face and she goes, "Oh, you're afraid." And it was like, really? So I crouched and looked at my 3-year-old daughter in the eyes and said, "I'm not afraid." Anyway, I figured it out, wrote my first book, Kids Money book, created cartoon characters. And if you're going to start a brand new topic, you go to the world's largest publisher. At that point it was Simon & Schuster. I ran in with my manuscript. We can empower kids around the world to take charge of their financial lives and grow up to design the financial life that they want, to be happy and healthy and follow their dreams and da da da. And she cuts me off and she goes, "Thanks for stopping by. We're not going to take a risk on a new topic. It's a cute idea." Shut down. Walking outside. You don't cry in front of them. You wait till you get outside. So I cried, carrying my manuscript. I got about 2 blocks and it was like, "Oh, come on, put your big girl panties on. They need proof of concept." It went back to my mother in my brain saying, "No, rejection means you didn't explain it well enough. You didn't come across. It's you own that rejection." So I said, she needs proof of concept. So I opened up the first children's bank at FAO Schwartz, the toy store in New York City. And I opened a real bank called the First Children's Bank, clever name, and an institute for at-risk children up in Harlem, and started a greeting card company with them to teach them to become entrepreneurs, to come into mainstream economy. Both were very successful. In fact, Princess Diana flew over with the royal children to open up accounts at my bank, which was really cool. Anyway, okay. So back to Simon & Schuster. Ta-da! Proof of concept. Every newspaper, TV show, radio covered the First Children's Bank because it was novel and goofy and everything. Simon & Schuster said, "Thanks for stopping by. We're still not going to take a risk on a new topic. There are no books about this. Therefore, it is not a topic of interest." Oh, shut down again. Walking outside, crying again, made it 2 blocks, and it was like, "Oh, put your big girl panties on." I know how to buy and sell companies. I did that at Chase Manhattan Bank. So I bought a publishing company. And under the proviso that at closing, the bank said to me, "By the way, you're chairman of the board." I did not want to run a publishing company. I wanted a book. Obviously, the first publishing meeting, I said, "Listen, you all work for me. I'll fire all of you if you don't publish the book." They decided to publish the book. Strange as it was. And we sold 50,000 copies. I sold the publishing company, went back to Simon & Schuster, and Simon & Schuster, of course, said, "Oh, proof of concept. Look, there's this other book out there." It's mine. And they decided to publish the Kids Money book. Well, that's not what they published, actually. What they did is I also talked to parents and kids at home, kids at school and after school, work with companies, but they published my first adult book called Money Doesn't Grow on Trees, A Parent's Guide to Raising Financially Responsible Children. Then the phone rings one day. My daughter is now 10 years old, comes running in and goes, "Mom, Oprah is on the phone." And I go, "Kyle, it's not Oprah, sweetheart. I have a friend who does Oprah impersonations. So I'm doing Go Girl, give it your best shot, climb every mountain." I'm singing, I'm being such a jerk. It's beyond comprehension. So my daughter goes and gets a piece of paper and writes out, holds it up in front of me and says, "You can be a jerk if you want, and you can ruin your life but do not ruin mine. Stop it. Anyway, indeed, it was Oprah. So that was my big break. And I worked with Oprah for 5 years on air. I did 13 shows. That book hit #1 on the New York Times bestseller list, sold millions, and validated the topic of teaching kids about money and how important it was, and that level of empowerment. And then I created the first money curricula, yada, 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 bestsellers, on and on and on. Did my 29th book, and I'm working on my 30th.
So let's go to some of this money concept for kids, right? So as I said, look, most people don't have any concept about money. They just don't. It's amazing to me how many people will run up their credit card to thousands and thousands of dollars, not understanding like they're going to have to somehow pay it off at the incredible interest that really what they bought, probably by the end of it, could have bought it 10 times over. I mean, people just don't get it. So when you're talking about kids, so let's start with that first basic book that you wrote about children. So if you're talking to somebody right now, so you're talking to people out there that have kids, what would you tell them to do? What are the things that they need to do to help their kids understand and grow into financially adapted adults?
The first thing is, don't make money the biggest secret in the family. We hide everything. They hear us fight about it, by the way. 85% of all divorces are due to money issues. They can lead to things like infidelity and breakdown of the relationship. We carry these old paradigms in that, like, people don't talk about money. We can be at a diner for dinner and we hide the check. Like, stop it. Talk about money. Money is the business side of life. You need to have a healthy relationship to it.
Really?
I teach earning, saving, spending, and sharing. Money is a social connection that we all have. You never use money in isolation. The same dollar can go to buy drugs as it can to go to charity. Talk about your values through money. Talk about what money means within the family, what it can do, what it can't do, how you're saving for their future, what happens to them if something happens to you. All your kids have these questions. And make it a natural part. Don't make it a secret. Don't make it magic. It isn't magic.
I think that's such an incredible, I think the number of people that I work with who live in lack, right? And why do they live in lack? They can't see abundance because of what they learned as a child. And I remember something that really has harmed me in more ways than I can imagine was we were, as a first my family fought about money all the time. My mom and dad fought about money all the time. That was their major fight. It was really, nobody ever punched anybody, but let's just say we got really close to those things. And then my dad decided that he was going to go back to college and get his PhD. So he has 3 kids in the family. He's going to go back to college and get his PhD, which means, they set us down. They said, okay, we're not going to have much money. So don't expect anything. Don't expect, whatever. Well, so what I heard was I need to help. So I'm going out and I'm like, at that time you could collect bottles, like glass bottles. You go collect glass bottles, you get like a nickel deposit or something like that. And I'm out every day, like trying to help the family with these glass bottles. And I'm like, we can turn these in, we can make money. I'll help the family get there. And it wasn't like, we'll make it, we're going to find a way. While we're doing this is at the end result, he's going to be in a better position for the family to make us more money. It was just like, you can't have. So it was like all this lack. You can't do that. Don't ask for things. You're not going to get new things. Like it was all lack. And it really hurt me because from that point on, I was always like, I would hoard whatever I had. Like I had to hoard my M&Ms. I had to hoard, whatever I had. And I wasn't good at sharing because, oh my gosh, you'll be the last M&M I ever eat in my life. And even I got that way with sports. Like, no, it's my ball. I'm not going to share my ball with you because it's my ball. And if I lose my ball, I'll never get another one. It was really made a big impact in the idea between lack and abundance and what we felt. And so what a big key concept for young people, young kids to understand is that we can talk about it. We can share it. We can find ways to make this happen. It's like, We think that there'll never be another dime, there'll never be another dollar. If I spend this money, it's gone forever. But the people who live in abundance, they always have $100 in their wallet. They're not afraid to hand it to somebody just off the street. They have a different mindset, and because their relationship to money is different.
I love what you're saying about the lack, and I love that. That is so key. And if you took that same family scenario, what I do is I flip it. I come and I say to the kids, I'm coming, let's come clean. This is what the situation is. Let's find money. Let's find ways as a family to save money. Let's turn off the lights because I'm going to show you the bills. And if we can save this amount of money, part of it can go toward the family to do something cool, and part of it is going to go into pay for dad's PhD. Let's collect bottles together. Let's do this. Let's have jobs. And kids want to contribute and feel like they're doing something. And there is nothing more empowering than saying, I've helped. I'm proud of what I've done. Let's recycle clothing. Let's do whatever that is as a family to contribute back. And now all of a sudden that's empowering. Mm-hmm. You can do stuff to figure out how to have that pride to help the family, as opposed to the lack mentality, the punishment, the fear. They help create scared. Mm-hmm. When you are scared, you get planted and you don't let go of the ball. Right. Because when you're able to share it, and no matter what, and with all the millions of people I've dealt with, I don't care how you perceive yourself to be poor, I always have people give to charity. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I work with a lot of inner city kids. In fact, I worked with, through one program, 500,000 at-risk children. And I would be in very poor areas, and I would be talking about charity. And then somebody would raise their hand and go, Miss Godfrey, I'm sorry, we're poor. And I go, oh, okay. I get that mentality. I get it. And then the next day I brought pictures in of kids in Africa with swollen stomachs and with bugs all over them, and never had shoes, or drinking dirty water. 70% of the world drinks dirty water. And wow. These kids were like, oh my God, what do we do? And I said, what we do is we adopt a child, and we go out and figure out ways. And through, other ways that the kids were earning money, they always gave 10% to these kids. And it shifts the paradigm. Because when you come into the world thinking, I'm poor, that connotes victimhood. That keeps you stuck in lack.
Absolutely. Yeah, and another thing I live by is you cannot get what you don't give. So it's this reciprocal kind of thing is like, and I don't give to get, but you absolutely have to understand that you cannot receive what you don't give. And that doesn't just mean finances. That means everything. That means compassion.
How many kids do you work with to teach them the talents that you have? Come on. It's part of who you are.
Yep. Well, it's part of understanding that, giving and receiving is the same cycle, right? It's the same cycle. And so the more that you pull away from something, then it's less likely that you're in alignment with it. So you have to be able to be in that understanding that the more that you give, the more that you get. And it's not like you go around going, I'm going to give, so I can't wait to where's my gift? It's not that. It's just understanding that is the cycle, that is the connection. And then you feel like, I'm sure those young kids felt like they had more. All of a sudden, if I can give something, I have more, right? So then you start in the idea of abundance, because if you could give your 10%, you have money to give. You have it. And it's just a new mindset shift. And I think that's what I call the Olympic level mindset shift. It's shifting your mind into a new direction so you can live a new life. And that's really what you've done all your life. And you had the blessing to, early on, even though your mom might have pulled you back from some more of your off the wall ideas, she loved to say to you,
I could have gone the mafia route. I mean, I was full boat extortion. Wow, this is a great way. Yeah. No, she could have. Yeah.
Well, tell us about your your most recent book that you published. Tell us about that book.
My most recent book is to empower women in older life. There's something called gray divorce, which is divorce over 50.
Mm-hmm.
It's the largest growing segment of divorce in our country. And women are initiating it than men. And women get screwed financially. So that's what I call the book Get Off Your Assets, a woman's guide to avoid being screwed in her divorce.
So let's go to that, because there's a lot of people, like, you're 50, so now you're looking at most people are starting to think about retirement at 50. If you get divorced, maybe that's not a thought of yours. Maybe it's thought of like, now I've got to work till I'm 70, or now I've got to work till I'm 75. So what's the biggest line of advice that you give women in that scenario that they find themselves already like, oh no, what now?
Well, the other thing is, too, that women are behind the 8 ball in a lot of cases, especially if they've dropped out of the workforce to raise kids. So the kids get to be the major money suck, and women will spend their money on their kids for something. It could be soccer shoes, it could be whatever, as opposed to saving it and investing it. So when it comes time to look at finances, women have saved less. Now, women are way more empowered today to take charge of their financial life, but I'm dealing with women over 50, and they had a different paradigm. They grew up in the time, if the man was the breadwinner, with the don't worry, you're taken care of. Well, during the divorce, men look at money as the business side. Women look at it as emotional. He did love me. He's not going to hurt me. He's not going to whatever. Doesn't work like that. So for women, what I do is take you through exercises to look, first of all, let's look at the spending. Let's look at what you want to have your life look like moving forward. Let's design that. Then where do you want to live? How do you want to live? And then put price tags to that. And I have women keep focusing on what matters profoundly. Women like to hold on to emotional stuff, and I get it. Family home. Well, the family home may be big and not serve your purposes, and may be a money grab for you in the bottomless pit. And you may have a vision that, oh, all the kids are going to be here for the holidays, and we're going to have this family compound. And yeah, well, they go out and they get married, and then, Mom, I can't come this year because I'm doing whatever. And you know what? Maybe next year we'll come for Thanksgiving, but you know what? We can't come for, that whole thing. So look at what your life is and look at what's important. And what do you really want? Do you want to travel to go see the kids? Do you want to travel just because you want to travel? It's important to socialize and to have a social community, but is it important to go out to an expensive restaurant or do potluck at home where everyone comes to someone's house and you're together and you're laughing and you're being there and you only spent enough money on one dish? So you can start shifting the way life was to what you want it to be and still gain the same, what I say, being healthy, wealthy, and wise.
Oh, beautiful. There's so many golden nuggets. I can't even, I'm just like I knew that you were going to be. Amazing, beautiful, light, soulful, authentic, kind. I mean, just exactly what I knew you were going to be. So, Neale, if people want to follow you, or they want to find out what your next book is, how do they find you?
You can Neale at nealegodfrey.com, and Neale is Neale. And then it's at nealegodfrey.com. My books are on Amazon. I've got a website, I've got stuff, and, I do speaking engagements all over the place and love to speak to groups and empower people, whether you're kids or you're older, to take charge of your financial life. And with women with gray divorce, it's interesting because in the old days, women, the kids are gone, the dog is dead, and you're looking across the kitchen table at your husband who's reading the newspaper or looking at his phone and you go, oh my God, please pass the butter. And by the way, I want a divorce. So women are now deciding, holy mackerel, I have 30 more years to live. I have all this stuff I want to do. And my thing is, I empower women. Design it and go do it.
Love it. So much information. So folks, look, she writes books. She's out there going to help you, your children. She speaks. I'm sure that if you're looking for a speaker on stage, I speak, but I would hire Neale. I would go for Neale. She's a home run every single time. It's going to be every single time home run. There's no doubt about it. Neale, thank you, thank you, thank you. I am so blessed, as the audience is today, for you to be here. Thank you a million times. And hey, everybody, I want you to have a winning day. Share, 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 share. Like, you want people to hear this. You want people to know who Neale is. You want people to not buy Neale's books. You want to buy her books. So thank you for being here. And Neale, you're awesome.
Thank you, Sherry. What an honor to be here.